Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the breakdown. I'm Tone. It's fantastic to have you here with me once again. It's been a couple of months since my last video, so I'll start off by apologizing for that, but we'll get to why that is in a little while. I really hope that you had a very Merry Christmas and your year has started fantastically and continues to go very, very well. I've got some notes. I'll probably go a little bit off track, and I'm going to try to keep this video on the shorter side, but being that it's been a little while since I've done one, we'll see how well that goes. There's a few things I really do want to talk about, and so we'll get through some of the real main ones. Let's start with a short discussion. If you've been following my videos, my channel for a while now, you'll know some of the things that I've already talked about, but I'll cover them briefly. So last year, I can't say last year anymore. I have to say 2021 because we're now 2023. In 2021, we had an instance where banks were tightening their lending criteria, and that was enough for me to say, okay, I need to look into this a bit more. I then formed a very firm view that interest rates would need to rise last year, 2022. Most economists were following the central bank narrative, saying that rates wouldn't need to rise until this year, 2023, at the earliest, and the tail end of this year, or next year, 2024. And I mean, it doesn't surprise me that they were saying those things. I think it's important, though, to understand that it wasn't an accident. These people that run the show are not stupid. They didn't make a mistake. I've got here on my notes, the RBA president apologised about a month ago, or maybe even less than a month ago. Apologised for saying that rates wouldn't rise until 2024, and then cited an attempt, like backtracked and cited in an attempt to say, oh, you know, people didn't read into the caveats that we put in. But those caveats are always there. Plain and simple, it was dishonesty. And so, like I said in my video in like October or September of 2021, based on that, you know, I'm not surprised by what's happened in 2022. I'm very disappointed in the way those that run the show are dishonest, but not surprised by the outcome at all. And I think it's important to also look at the fact that at the time that I was talking about interest rates needing to rise in 2022, we didn't have any of the beginnings of the WAR overseas. You know, the big one that everyone talks about, not any of the smaller ones that no one talks about. I mean, the big one, you know. Got to be careful what I say on here, so I won't use names and everything, but the WAR that occurs right now hadn't started. And that's being used at the moment as an excuse for the high inflation that we've got. It's being used as an excuse for the rates needing to go up worldwide. It's rubbish. This idea that something that's happening right now can affect inflation it's a fallacy. There's no truth to it. When you inflate something, you are adding something in. So we are seeing the results of inflation that had already occurred, but it's actually flowing through to spending and the costs of things, probably exacerbated by the supply chain issues that we've had during last year, 2022, for the costs going up. But the costs won't come back down, and that's because the inflation is being realized. But it was being created, 2020 and 2021, when currency printing was flat out so that the economy wouldn't collapse because productivity was through the floor. So inflation is, we're just realizing now in the economy that inflation. It's got absolutely nothing to do with what's occurring now. So the things that are occurring now to do with the WAR, any currency printing that's going on for that, we will realize that in 2023, 2024, 2025. So it's just important to understand that. So after being told that, again, prior to the WAR occurring and everything, and the excuses that they would later use, which they have now already used, interest rates have risen since May 8 straight times. 8 straight months of rises, going from 0.1% to 3.1%. That's here in Australia anyway. Now, what was I going to say? I was already talking about, and this is pre-2021. In 2020, I was talking about the being used as an excuse for many, many things, and the beginning of this crisis upon repetitive crisis, a new crisis coming through. I don't know whether I'd call it the crises phenomenon. Maybe we can call it that. Began with the in 2020, and it's not going to stop. I did say in 2020 that it wouldn't stop, that this was the beginning of a process where they were just going to continue to have these crises. And we've already seen enough evidence to know that we're now going into 2023, most definitely. What they're going to pull out of the hat this year and next year, still open to debate, and still trying to figure out what I think to do with that. But just important to understand that what I was talking about then is happening now. It's not an accident, by the way. Any of these things that I'm talking about previously, don't go thinking that I got lucky. There's no luck involved. I look at the macro of everything that's going on. I understand how the system works pretty well now, and that's what it looked like. That's what it looked like was going to happen, and how they were going to work it and use it. I'm not surprised that the majority of people have forgotten what's been done to them, because unfortunately they're just sort of part of the system and they just go with the flow. But as for me, a lot of this stuff is pretty obvious, and it's not hard to make these types of predictions, because they've kind of done these things in different ways, but they've done these things before. They just rework it, sort of twist it a different way. Anyway, so I then want to also just draw a quick reference to the fact that during the 2020 period, when we were talking about the and all the things that were going to come from that, I did talk about the fact that they were going to introduce this. I'm sure you know what that is, and that they were going to enforce it in various ways. They definitely managed to use coercion and that sort of thing. There's now plenty of discussion about the safety of that, which I already spoke about prior to it being rolled out. And there's also a lot of discussion going on, not mainstream, but there's a lot of discussion now going on about how far governments went. How far did they go too far? with this stuff, pushing this, you know, and so just keep your ears open for that stuff because it is starting to gather a decent amount of momentum. It wouldn't surprise me that in a decade's time there'll be a lot more discussion. Um, just as I saw on the news just before, they're talking about all the stuff that happened during John Howard's tenure as Prime Minister, to do with asylum seekers and all that sort of thing. They're talking about that now, and we're, you know, a decade and a half on from that period of time. And so, yeah, wouldn't surprise me if this stuff is being talked about in a similar manner, and they're critical and whatever about how that was handled then. But it's already being talked about now. Yeah, but these things that I've just covered here, I mentioned them prior to them coming out, prior to them being enforced, prior to them the discussion about safety and all that really happening. Not surprised that it all occurred at all. So with hindsight and looking at what predictions get made, and then being able to see what did occur and matching them up or measuring it, we get a good idea about how we're going in terms of, well, did that occur and how did that come about, and how can I adjust my predictions for the future. And I'm pretty happy with where I sit in terms of what I saw coming and what has occurred. So want to then look at the year ahead. And the reason I've talked about the previous stuff is when we're moving forward, we don't want to be looking at the past too much, but we do want to look back at where we came from. Where did we come from? And how did we get to where we are? So we've got a pretty good idea about how we can move forward. So with that, let's have a look at the year ahead. Interest rates, right? They've gone up the fastest they have in decades. Again, this is a little bit of past, but I believe that interest rates are going to continue to go up. I'm not sure how high they're going to take them, but to go from 0.1 to 3.1 in 8 months, that's a huge shock. There's going to be a lot of people that are under strain and stress. Pardon me. We're already seeing the effects in the economy to a degree. But 2023, look, we're looking at recession, and I mean official recession. I think we already are in one. So I was going to say, I do want to again compare the interest rates going up the fastest in decades, and just compare back to discussions that I used to have on Facebook, where I spoke plenty in that time about the fact that they weren't reducing their interest rates fast enough after the 2008 crash. Our dollar with the US dollar remained on parity for a period of time because they slashed their rates and we didn't. And they say that we avoided a recession and that was good for our economy. But a high Australian dollar is not good for our productivity, domestic productivity, and being able to export and all that sort of thing. And so that actually crushed us in a way that never gets talked about. We were put back huge steps because apparently we avoid recession. We avoided recession. And so interest rates weren't dropped fast enough. And then now they're being raised harder and faster than in a long time. We need to understand why it's being done like that. It's not by accident. Okay, the people that run the show run these cycles over a decade or a couple of decades. It's a system that they're perfecting. It's not oh dear, I didn't see that coming. Oh man, I'm sorry. That's not how it works. And it's really, really important to understand that. I can't stress that enough. This is just a part of the system. It's the next part of the cycle. As I said a bit over a year ago in that video prior to the interest rates going up, the system operates in a way that enough people come under enough financial stress, they drop off the bottom, they become dependent on government and banks and whatever, they get into debt they can't get out of, and then the cycle starts again. And it looks like productivity goes up and jobs goes good and everything like that. They'll do the same thing again. So we're just in that part of the cycle. As I said, recession, yeah, is looming, officially looming. Officially, we're not in one, apparently, but we are in one. Why do I say that? Because the cost of living is going up like crazy. We haven't fully realised yet the number of people that are going to lose their homes. Their mortgages are going to default. It's going to happen. It already must be happening. They like to say that banks don't really want that to occur and all this sort of thing. Banks have hedged themselves in such a way that it doesn't affect them too much, as long as the whole system doesn't collapse like an '08 crash. They're fine. It's the people that suffer. The people lose their deposits and fall back into the rental market, which is already stretched thin now. 2023, 2024 has some very interesting times ahead. And I say interesting in lieu of other terms I probably could use, for a lot of people. It's something also to draw note to. If you haven't already been checking out my Real Money playlist, please go and check that out, because what I'm going to talk about now sort of alludes to that. So we're talking about the dollar and we're talking about currency in those terms, but I want to talk about real money briefly. But if you go and check out my Real Money playlist, there's some good detail in there to help you understand what I believe real money is and why, and the importance of it. But I just want to talk about the recent strength of bullion. So gold, silver, platinum, those have in the last couple of months come off of a low. Silver went down to about $25 something. It's now at $35 something, just in the space of a couple of months. And I rest assured, I was taking full advantage, as much as I could, full advantage of that drop, with knowing what I know and knowing how things are going to work. I was taking full advantage. That was the load up time. That's when currency needed to go into real money and real fast, and so I was doing that. So please, if you haven't already been looking at having that, it's not too late. It's something that's an ongoing process, but yeah, that time was a big advantage, and I was talking about that on my Real Money playlist at the time, that it was something to be really getting in on. But it's showing strength. Gold's not hitting all-time highs, but boy, in US dollar terms, it's up there, and even in our dollar terms, it's pretty high. So, but that's gold, and I think that it's got a long way to go, actually, in order to be able to catch up to what its real value should be. And it's a time of recession when the value of everything goes through the roof and the productivity is down, and the economy is just on its knees, that sort of thing, that part of the cycle. That's when gold in particular continues up, gets on its trajectory and continues up on a more sharp angle to the upside, to catch up to where it really should be. And silver sort of being the slow to catch up um, partner in crime. um, it can go up and down. It's a lot more volatile. But I do believe long term silver is going to um, catch up to gold in a big way, only because it's more affordable. They're both money. I mean, a lot of people like to say that silver is an industrial metal, and well, yeah, sure, it is. And that's why the price is suppressed so much. But when people can't afford gold and they want to run to something in order to be able to preserve their wealth and their purchasing power, then they're going to go to silver too. It's going to happen. And I think that supplies, like they say that the supplies are catching up or they're not too bad or whatever, but premiums, the premium above spot price that you have to pay to actually get the physical metal, well, that tells me different. Um, but bullion has been showing a lot of strength recently. Uh, and what was I going to say? Oh, the economy showing cracks. It starts to show cracks when, look, our economy in the last 3 years has, if you looked at the share market, for example, prior to this year, you'd think, and prior, and taking out that blip early 2020 where it sort of just went, oh, all the way down and then it's come back up, that sharp drop off, taking those out, the share market is indicative of the economy. Uh, it was all based on currency printing coming into the system so to prop everything up, because you can't have productivity, and we didn't have productivity when everything's in lockdown. So it becomes a very false, um, um, yeah, it just becomes a very false idea of how the economy is going. And then as a result of that inflationary time, then we start to realize the inflation here. The rates go up. Productivity really hasn't improved that much. Supply chain issues, blah blah blah. That is, and then because the interest rates have gone up. Um, oh, hang on, we don't have the productivity to even justify what we've already printed, um, and everything starts to really crack and fall apart. Now they won't. I don't believe they'll let it fall apart. Like I said, it's just part of another cycle, and that's why it's important to jump back and say that gold and silver bullion and platinum, they are not get rich quick schemes. They are real money. So they hold their value against a ever devaluing in value of currencies. That's it. So someone did a calculation at one point about how many ounces of gold it would cost you to buy a house back in 1960 or 1970, and then how many ounces would get you the average median, well, yeah, the average house now. And it's basically the same. Even with all the ups and downs, it's basically the same. That's because real money holds its full value. If you can buy the same amount or similar amount of stuff with the value of gold that you have over a period of time, yet it costs you ever increasing numbers of dollars, you know which one is real money. It's as simple as that. So if you've got cash in the bank, you've got your currency, digital digits in a bank account in the bank, that's always being devalued. If it's in an asset, it's holding its value. So I'm not by any means suggesting that gold and silver are the only assets you should hold. I'm talking about that as being the main thing you should have in terms of money. It's always easy enough to, excuse me, I'll have a drink. it's always easy enough to convert your real money back into fiat currency if it's easier to spend it on something that you need to purchase. But let's simply say you put $20,000 into gold, which would buy you approximately 8 ounces. And then in 10 years' time, you need to buy something. Generally speaking, you should be able to buy the same that you could have previously. But let's just say that you left the 20,000 in the bank and you got your mediocre interest rate paid to you with the currency in the bank, then you might only be able to buy half of what you need. If you've got gold and gold has doubled, well, gold's kept up with inflation and kept up with the cost of things. You go and you sell your gold to a bullion dealer and you take that cash, which is now 40 grand or whatever, and you go and you buy the item that you need to, and you can still pay for that item. That's the importance of real money. That's the goal. But like I said, I think gold and silver need to catch up. They've got to play catch up, and they'll likely play catch up when everyone flocks to the safety of real money in order to preserve their wealth. So that's the end of my notes. I just wanted to say that I do believe, based on what I've seen and based on what I've already been consistently correct about, this crisis mentality, this crisis agenda is going to continue. I'll have to come out with a video later to sort of put more in depth about what I think they're going to do and how they're going to do it. But this is just a Happy New Year message. It's this is what happened. This is what I thought was going to happen. This is what's happened. And these are the sorts of things we need to look out for in the coming year. So that's what this video is about. But what was I going to say? Yes, I think 2023, 2024, 2025, they're setting us up for a number of things. I'll go into some depth soon about what they're likely to do. But how about I say what I've been doing for the last couple of months? I've realised while watching the interest rates rising like they have been, and understanding that there are things that they are going to be working on in the next 2 to 3 years, I need to be prepared. I'm in preparation mode at the moment. So I wasn't working as much, partly for, about a year there. It was partly, and probably 80% of the reason why I wasn't doing anything was because of that. But the other reason was I had things that I was doing that didn't involve full-time work. My work was placed elsewhere. Now I am earning currency. That's what I'm doing. I'm out there in the workforce earning currency to put some of it into real money and continue that process. Some of it is to replenish the cash reserves, because I did use a reasonable amount of that, putting it into real money when I was able to take full advantage. And that's why it's good to have some cash, some real money, some assets. You've got to have things across the board, But that's what I'm doing. At the moment, I'm in preparation mode. I am earning currency and increasing the cash reserves in preparation for the possibility where I can't work anymore, or can't work for another period of time for whatever they bring and force at me. because rest assured, I'm still resolute about continuing on my current path, standing up for what is right, not just an opinion of what is right, but what is right. So that's going to, take up a large portion of this year for me. Yeah, so that's basically that's what I've been doing for the last 2 months, and it's what I'm going to continue to do this year to just continue to prepare. For those that have been keeping up with my real money playlist, I'm hoping mid to end of January I'll be able to do a number of new videos showcasing some new additions and some new items. I'll be hopefully able to take delivery of that by middle of the month or towards the end of the month, once the bullion dealer comes back from holidays. So I'm really excited to share some of those items with my audience. Quite happy with a lot of what's in there. I should be happy with all of it, right? No, but there's a few standout items that I really like to share. So I'm going to do that when I can. I've also been recently working on a project that I'm going to start putting out more. Again, if you've been following my channel for a period of time, a reasonable number of years, you'll know about my A6 Will Never Be the 9 project, which is the 7-color rainbow project. Go through my playlist, you'll be able to find some of the stuff that I was doing on that. But when I had a little bit of time over the holidays here, where I'm taking a break, I've been working on that. So hopefully I'll be able to reveal some of that by the end of the month as well. So yeah, this year shaping up to be a fairly big one for me, I hope. I'm looking forward to it being a big year. But I just wanted to perhaps finish off with, don't allow all of what I've just been talking about and what's going on around you in the world to frighten you. Don't allow it to get you down, or be positive about the year. Be positive about the things that you can do. Most of all, educate yourself. And I don't mean indoctrination education that we get fed from a young age. I mean, go and look at things for yourself. Figure it out. Look at what's actually going on. Like I said, this stuff that I've been talking about here on my notes, it's not an accident that I was able to have a pretty good idea of what was coming, because I don't live within the system in that way anymore. I'm not just following the I don't follow a lot of the stuff I was taught, because it's not true. I've educated myself over a period of a fairly long time now, more than a decade, and part of that was really just getting to realize what real money is, and how the financial system works, and how that completely adulterates the governmental system. And then you want to control people? Well, the government's got to be able to use education to a degree, and they do. So don't allow all of that stuff to get you down or to blindside you. Open the mind, get out there and learn stuff so that you can start to figure all this stuff out for yourself as well. Don't take my word for it. Go find out and look at it, and you'll start to see. Anyway, that's all. Happy New Year. I want to wish you that Happy New Year. I wish blessings upon you all. And thank you for joining me. And until next time, take care and God bless.